who was heading home with his wife, also an officer. The assailant wound up in a scuffle with the husband, and that's when police say the wife pulled her gun and fired.
Wow, she might have saved her husband's life.
Hours trying to make sense of the scene as the nightly...
I'll help you make sense of the scene. You've got criminals who are roaming the streets, who are hopping on board trains, assaulting married couples on their way home. This is terrible.
Commuter mayhem swirled around them. Sources say the 32-year-old suspect, who lives in a shelter in Brooklyn, has 5 prior unsealed arrests, mostly for assault and menacing, including one alleged assault just last month.
No, that person should be in jail. 5 prior assaults. This is crazy. This person should be behind bars. It's not safe to release them, yet they're out on the streets, and this was number 6.
And the investigation does continue. That suspect was hospitalized at Bellevue Hospital with a non-life-threatening injury. The husband, the officer he was scuffling with, suffered a laceration.
This is terrible.
Did the other officer pull the trigger?
She
Police
had
say
to.
They're investigating whether the suspect had simulated having a weapon. It turned out he was not armed.
But he injured the husband. We just heard. This is so crazy. And what's even worse is if these weren't police officers, if this was like a private citizen, the city would crack down on that person. They would be persecuted.
Crime is rampant in D.C. It's rampant in our generally blue-run cities.
Yes, it is.
And they've got to do something about it, and they're never going to win another election. And instead of calling me a dictator, they like to say Trump's a dictator. Trump's a dictator. Well, I had calls from many, many friends, including Democrats. I have a lot of Democrat friends, but they're normal people. And they were thanking me so much for what I'm doing in D.C. They feel so safe already.
Well, that
D.C. was overrun with crime
earlier this month, and now a new survey is out involving mayors across the country. More than 60% say juvenile crime is a serious issue in big cities from coast to coast. The
Why is it not 100%?
Mayors credit the partnerships they have with various federal agencies, including the ATF, DEA, and FBI, with helping to reduce crime in their cities. However, money is now a major issue.
I disagree with people who say funding is the problem. I think empty jails are the problem. A lot of these big cities, like New York especially, we've decriminalized the actions of people under the age of 18. If someone does something and they're under 18 in New York, unless it's really bad, they get released back to their parents. They go to a family court type of situation. There are 0 consequences for youth crime. And you know what that does? That means that between the ages of, let's say, 12 years old and 18 years old, a teenager can have a master's degree in committing felonies without suffering any consequences for their wrongdoing. And then they're 18. What do you think that does to the criminal population in New York? It hardens it and toughens it and gives it more experience than the police who are supposed to arrest these people.
It's not talked about yet, but it'll soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA. I think he's protecting a lot of other people. He's not protecting himself because there's nothing there, but he's protecting a lot of people.
Because Trump's now saying it's a hoax, it's the case like a hoax or something. I mean, come on, you know it's not a hoax. He's been on the plane, many times. It's just he was never on the plane with the kids.
I've seen the itineraries and I've interviewed all the victims. There's never been an instance where Trump was on a plane with these kids and a rape occurred. But that can't be said for Clinton. That can't be said for others. While the Clintons were on the plane, while Bill Clinton was on the plane, there were rapes that occurred.
Overheard at Phoenix Airport on September 8th, 2025, a senior Justice Department investigator who personally worked on the Epstein case tells all. Glenn Prager, who has reviewed Epstein itineraries and has interviewed Epstein's victims, drops a bombshell. He says that the DOJ did not want to go after Epstein because he's a CIA asset, that the evidence from his investigation confirms that Bill Clinton was present for alleged rapes on the Lolita Express, and that President Trump was not present for the rapes that Glenn Prager investigated, but that he is protecting a lot of other people that were.
How about this whole Epstein thing that's like going on?
I worked on that case. I used to interview all the victims. And my picture was 20 to 30 victims in Palm Beach that I was interviewing and dealing with and stuff like that. And then we would go ready to go to trial. And
and they would flip. Epstein would just pay them off, and they were just like these little kids. You know, they pay off their family. They're all broke kids and poor families, and so you pay them off like anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000, nothing in that guy's world.
Prager there describes how the victims that he interviewed were paid off by Epstein right before going to trial. Prager has worked as an investigator inside the Department of Justice for over 20 years. According to Prager's LinkedIn About page, it says that during the tenure at DOJ, Prager served as an inspector overseeing sensitive investigations involving major DOJ components, including the FBI, DEA, Bureau of Prisons, U.S. Marshal Service, ATF, and the U.S. Attorney's offices. This seems to corroborate what Prager told us. He was tasked with interviewing Epstein's rape victims and investigating flight logs. On his backpack in the airport, we spotted an embroidered FBI patch, which caught the attention of our citizen journalist.
I'll tell you this, because no, it's not talked about yet, but it'll soon come out that he was a CIA informant.
He was a CIA.
He wasn't a CIA.
Although many have suspected it to be the case, this is the first time a Department of Justice official has confirmed that Epstein worked for the CIA and is a foreign asset.
So DOJ was settling the case, and they were just letting him, do house arrest and they minimized his arrest. Part of that is because all the victims kept on flipping, and they didn't have anyone to go to trial with. The more importantly part is they didn't want to go after him. He's a asset for the United States and Israel for the CIA. I just know that's what he was, and that's why he was protected so long for this. And people turned a blind eye about all this garbage that he was doing in the United States. He had a lot of secrets. More about Israeli stuff than anything else. I mean, he was doing stuff for Israel and the United States. He was working for both.
Glenn Prager, the Department of Justice investigator on the Epstein case, then talks about whether President Trump was involved. Many are trying to tie Trump to Epstein, but what Glenn Prager says is that Trump wasn't present during the inappropriate sexual behavior that he was investigating. But Prager does say that Bill Clinton was, backed up by his experience interviewing the victims and reviewing the Epstein Lolita Express itineraries. Quote, they killed the Epstein list to protect the Clintons.
But they claim that Trump's involved in the rapes and all that stuff, and he wasn't. I mean, I've seen the agendas, I've seen the itineraries, and I've interviewed all the victims. There's never been an instance where Trump was on a plane with these kids and a rape occurred. But that can't be said for Clinton, and it can't be said for others. I remember that it was being killed because I know Clintons were on there.
The Clintons were on there.
100%. And while the Clintons were on the plane, while Bill Clinton was on the plane, there were rapes that occurred. And that's what I'm saying. Trump, although as many flights as there were and all that kind of stuff, and on the island and all that stuff, he was never there during a single alleged rape. But that Clinton for sure. And that's where the big cover-up was.
The Department of Justice investigator inside the Trump Justice Department says that while Trump may not have been present during the crimes that Prager investigated, it is clear that Trump is, quote, protecting a lot of people.
I don't know what's new that I have never seen that he's so hesitant to now show what's going on, and releasing all those files. I think he's protecting a lot of other people. He's not protecting himself because there's nothing there, but he's protecting a lot of people.
The citizen journalist boarded American Airlines Flight 1634 and landed in D.C. Monday at 8 o'clock at night and proceeded to go to dinner with this man, this DOJ investigator, at a restaurant called Blue Duck Tavern. Glenn Prager dislikes the fact Trump said the Epstein scandal is a hoax, but he also says, according to the evidence from his investigation, that Trump is not covering up for himself.
Because Trump's now saying it's a hoax, it's the case like a hoax or something. I mean, come on, it's not a hoace. He says a lot of stupid stuff. He's been on the plane, many times. It's just he was never on the plane with the kids. People want to tie it to him and say he's covering up for himself, but he's not.
Now, this is a very good thing for President Trump and seemingly exonerates him from many people who claim that he was doing something inappropriate himself. This dinner went on for an hour and 45 minutes as this Department of Justice investigator revealed things to a stranger that the leadership of the FBI and the Department of Justice has not. Prager revealed more information about Trump's hesitation to be fully transparent with the Epstein case, gave us some details about internal gripes against FBI Director Kash Patel from within the FBI, and he detailed a developing feud between Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi. If you'd like to see more of that conversation in the restaurant, you may subscribe to OMG and find it on our website.
Who is like the one name where you're like, oh my God?
Here he is. Hey there, is this Glenn?
Yes.
You work for the Department of Justice, correct?
No.
You don't work for the Department of Justice. You had a patch on your backpack that said FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, in the airport.
Yeah.
And you talked about how you interviewed the Epstein people, all the Epstein victims. Do you recall that conversation?
I didn't. No. I don't know. How can I help you?
I wanted to confirm that you, in fact, did work for the department. Hang on with the phone. Let's try calling him again. Glenn?
I'm not talking to you.
Well,
I don't know who you are. I'm not talking to you.
You already did speak to my friend.
Hey, now stop talking. I don't know who you are.
I'm a journalist. I need your help, sir.
I'm not talking to you or any journalist about anything.
Did you interview the Epstein victims?
I can't talk to you.
Sir. On the heels of releasing this story, I wanted to emphasize just how touching it was for me to see Erica Kirk stand on stage in front of those 74,000 people in a stadium and say that she forgives the assassin who killed her husband, Charlie Kirk. I actually took this photo standing right in front of her when she did that, and I wept. The people standing next to me also wept. In the couple days that followed since that Sunday, it dawned upon me that equally as important as forgiving those who trespass against us is for those of us, the living, to achieve justice and accountability for the bad actors behind the scenes corrupting this country. We must have a Department of Justice that is actually about justice. If we do not have any accountability for bad actors, good people, even God-fearing people, are going to resort not to forgiveness, but vengeance. We cannot allow that to happen. And the only solution is exposure, journalism, sunlight as the best disinfectant. When the leadership in our government is not coming and transparent about matters they should be.
All right, that was James O'Keefe with his own brand of Lysol to kill the germs. And he does it one interview, one hidden camera at a time, it appears. Scott, were you aware of that O'Keefe breaking news from this past week?
No, didn't know about that. Didn't know about that.
Things get lost in the shuffle. That's why we got to preserve them and put them in the time capsule, because so much has been going on in each news cycle. I think it's discouraging and encouraging at the same time. It's like everyone knows that Trump and Patel and these guys are lying about the Epstein list, but now he's like, here's why they're lying. It's a good reason that they're not being honest with us.
Yeah, I mean, it's so on its face criminal that they're covering up for these people, and it's like, if there was, maybe they were saying, look, we can't tell you guys because there's a massive investigation underway right now, and we're about to just, lock everybody up. I'd be like, okay, cool. But they're saying, no, there's nothing here. It's a complete hoax, cover up, nothing to see here. So, but maybe that's the move. Maybe they need to say that there's nothing to see here while they doing the investigation in the background in order to not to spook everybody. And, they don't just start clipping everybody. Like if Trump just said, and I'm just being devil's advocate, if he was like, all right, we're coming after everybody on the list, we're going to have him very soon, then they'd probably take him out too. They'd probably Epstein him too. So maybe, but at the same time, it just feels like a cover up, and that's just disgusting.
Well, it's cover up, or sometimes throughout history, it's like a symptom of blackmail. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, where someone might be getting forced to say something, and because they're being denied free will, they bring in something like hyperbole to cast doubt on what they're saying, right? And now, if you got those two guys and they made their whole campaign to get to the FBI on, we're going to get these files and all this stuff, and then they're like, oh no, there's nothing to see here. It's like blink twice if you're being held hostage, bro.
Exactly.
So sometimes when they tell you things that like are on the face of it just idiotic to believe, it's like maybe it's a call for help. I don't know.
Yep.
But we don't know until we think about it, and we can't think about it till we look at it,
Exactly. And then, so he's kind of pulling the same thing like Candace is kind of doing with the whole Charlie Kirk thing, where she's like, oh, I got all this evidence, so tune in next time. And it's like, you're grifting. And then at the same time, where James O'Keefe is like, that little cliffhanger where he's like, oh, what's the biggest name on the list? And he's like, oh, it just cuts. Oh, you got to subscribe and pay us money. You're grifting, dude. I don't like that. I really don't like that at all. You're just as bad as Trump. You're covering up for pedophiles and rapists, James O'Keefe, in my opinion. So there you go.
Like I'm trying to weigh it out. On a capitalist side of the argument, he has overhead and expenses and things like that, and he needs to incentivize people to get behind the paywall. On the other hand, are we expecting him to do charity on behalf of the United States? Like maybe he should be getting like a reward for catching these people, right? Maybe. Or maybe Scott's right.
I don't know. It feels like a grift.
Maybe the people in the Rumble chat are right.
You know how I feel about James O'Keefe. I've made it very clear on this show. He's a scoundrel.
Well,
I try to Bohemian Grove, James, and
I try to take it like he's a delivery man for something. So I'm going to judge the something and not always the delivery man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Message from the messenger. Just trying to be discerning so that my overlapping biases don't afflict my judgments and choices and things like that.
That's a very pragmatic approach. Yep. I think that's
pragmatism.
good.
I might have to rethink it if it's William Jamesian.
Okay, well, practical, logical. It's a very logical approach. We're all about logic.
Right, I prefer like the Supertramp version. Let's just do the logical song. All right, in this next block coming up, we got the illogical Tim Dillon bringing you more news and more truth in his little satire here about you'll own nothing and be happy. This is recent because they had all those tech billionaires, 33 tech billionaires, just like 33 hours to catch that killer. They all got together. They didn't want to tell you too much not about it. Tim Dillon has a little riff on it. And then we're going to Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner, famous Hollywood power couple. They have a daughter. She found her way to the United Nations and she brought her own mask and a mask for everybody else. And what she had to say was, I think it's a symptom. There's a symptom. There's something going on out there, and it's socially catchable. If you run in certain circles, you're going to catch it. So anyway, it'll be JP react to Ben Affleck's daughter goes insane at the United Nations and makes the meme come true. And then liberals are chugging Tylenol for TikTok just because of Trump. It's the body language guy. He's just going to show you a couple clips, and we'll get out because we have our special guest, Mark Passio, coming up soon. So let's get to it. Colby, go ahead and hit play.
When these billionaires are telling you you don't need to own a house, it's not just that they don't think it's a good financial investment. Their interests are not served by you having block parties and seeing other people. They'd rather you live in a cell where people bring you Thai food and you watch YouTube videos about people or reality shows about people that do have homes. That's what people do. People in Los Angeles go to their cell on top of a P.F. Chang's, eat those lettuce wraps, which are good, and then watch reality shows about people that can afford to have a home. That's pornography now. You come thinking about having a place to see your friends. But they don't want you to have any friends. They don't want communities. It's the hollowing out of the entire thing that serves their purposes. And the only thing left is the bread and circuses and the Kimmels and the this and the that. It's the only thing left. And you're radicalized easily one way or the other, and they're pulling strings because you have less and less of your own shit. You don't have a community. You live in some global world where, like, every single thing is the most important thing. And then you go online and go, you know my take, and I think or not. You're supposed to care about shit that's like in a 10-block radius of where you live. You're not supposed to be involved in the Middle East. You're not supposed to be funding a real estate project in a place you've never been, in Gaza. It's not natural. It's insane. You're just not supposed to do that. You're supposed to care about things. You're supposed to know who got murdered 2 blocks away. Why did that person get murdered? You're supposed to know that. You're supposed to be interested in the crime in your area. Why? Because you live there. But now that there doesn't exist. It's malls and cupcake ATMs. It's fucking, private equity companies that build, mega structures that look like storage lockers. And you just sit there and get mad all day on the internet, and you don't know your neighbors, and you don't care if they get murdered. In fact, you might want them to. You have no stake in the game. And all of this isn't new, and it's being expedited at a level I've never seen. It has never been more obvious that they are trying to get rid of human beings and human relationships and human communities at an incredibly fast clip. Human behavior puzzles them. Sam Altman doesn't know what humans do. Sam Altman's confused by human behavior. He doesn't get it. He finds it inefficient and messy. It perplexes him. Okay? This is, and allegedly, that guy that worked for him died in a real weird way. Okay? And Sam Altman, when Tucker pressed him about that, acted like I did when my doctor asked me if I went to McDonald's. So let's get real here. These people don't care, and they think human behavior is a problem. Cultural practices that they don't understand. They don't understand people going to church. They don't understand festivals and fairs. They don't understand people having a community where they exchange goods and services in physical locations. They don't understand people that care. Their job is to make you terrified and broke. They want you on the Citizen app. They don't want another person telling you, hear what happened to Bob? They don't want that interaction happening. They want you on the Citizen app all day, hearing about crime that you don't care about because your communities aren't tight-knit communities where people know and care about each other. They're strange corporate hellscapes filled with like part-time residents, and they've turned every city in this country into a foreign Dubai like Disney Wonderland where people can launder money and then take a bunch of laundered drug money and go buy Labubu smoothies at Erewhon. They don't want anything resembling life. It's obvious they don't want anything resembling human life. You're supposed to just walk around and participate in some viral scam. That's the only reason you exist to these people. The only reason you exist to Sam Altman is so that he can monitor you in some way and that you can take part wittingly or unwittingly in some viral scam that someone's cooked up, that you can buy some food item or little critter or cryptocurrency that someone is hawking. That is the sum total of your humanity to these people. Why buy a house? You don't need a house. What a bad investment. What does that word even mean? Investment? What are you talking?
Let's check in with Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner's daughter, who's screaming at the United Nations demanding mask mandates.
And I am furious on their behalf. It is neglect of the highest order to look children in the eyes and say, we knew how to protect you, and we didn't do it. We have access to a technology to prevent airborne disease, something that millions of our ancestors and millions of people around the world today would kill for.
She's doing amazing work, and it also begs the question, what happened to her? And why are children of Hollywood elites so insane? Welcome back to the JP Rex channel, my beautiful freedom-loving friend. This is where we call out lies, hypocrisy, corruption, and help spread the light of truth and freedom because truth conquers. Now, why is Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner's daughter screaming at the United Nations demanding mask mandates? Well, we'll hear from her. It's a really good reason. I'm compelled. I forgot we're in the middle of a pandemic that she's crusading for. And it also begs the question, why are Hollywood children so insane? Like, do they put something in the water? Is it their parents? Is it their parents are involved in a satanic cult and therefore they're the offspring of it? We'll get into that. But first, all over the airwaves, you know, the other day, Trump was at the United Nations shaming them about their climate change narrative, calling it the greatest hoax in the history of the world. That's great. But luckily, Violet Affleck is here setting the record straight on why we should still mask children. Ben Affleck, Jennifer Garner's daughter, calls for mask mandates at UN due to ongoing pandemic. That's great. And she has the authority to be calling for mask mandates. That's great. And here you can see young Violet. Well, you really can't see her. She's hiding behind a mask. She's got overly dorky glasses on. You know, her parents are richer than heck, and she's wearing the most horrendous, cheap-looking glasses imaginable. That's great. And this is Violet kind of looking normal on the right. Looking very abnormal on the left. Normal on the right. One more time, very abnormal, kind of mentally ill looking on the left. Now, there's a common thread about the children of Hollywood elites that does not fit the normal demographic of children across the U.S. So starting with that, these are from Ollie London on Twitter. These are Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner's children. One is a COVID mask activist. I don't know, does like the mask industrial complex funder? I'm not sure. Demanding mask mandates be reinstated in 2025. Boy, that's great. The other is trans and identifies as a boy. Their ex-stepsister, Jennifer Lopez's daughter, also identifies as non-binary. Now, Violet, the COVID mask crusader, kind of Greta Thunberg 2.0, just yelling at the UN kind of thing. I guess technically she's not trans, at least not trans yet. Give it a little bit of time. Definitely will be trans, but apparently not trans yet. But the moral of this story, she's insane. And Ben Affleck and Jennifer Garner's other daughter is trans and identifies as a boy. Wow, how are they 2 for 2? But they're not the only ones in Hollywood that are batting a real high percentage of trans kids. Now check this out. And you can find this information all over the place. Take this with a grain of salt, but it's pretty consistent with what I've seen before. Daughter of Jennifer Garner, trans, also daughter of Ben Affleck. Daughter of Cynthia Nixon, trans. Son of Robert De Niro, trans, and no surprise. Son of Gabriel Union, trans. Son of Naomi Watts, trans. Daughter of Marlon Wayans, trans. Son of Charlize Theron, trans. Daughter of Cher, trans. Son of Jamie Lee Curtis, trans. Daughter of Rosie O'Donnell, non-binary. She escaped good. It could have been worse with Rosie as your dad. Daughter of Jennifer Lopez, non-binary. And here you see Jamie Lee Curtis with presumably her son and whoever these people are. Don't know, don't care. So right now we know there's a big uproar in the CDC. Trump is calling for transparency with big pharma and like their drugs. And the old guard at CDC is on their way out. Everybody's raising a fuss. And that's exactly why I love ground news. They empower you to be informed. Percentage of Hollywood elites and their children being trans, it is remarkably high compared to the everyday citizens' percentage of their children being trans, whatever that is. Mental illness, call it what you might, but there's something going on. And before we get to, what's her name, Violet Affleck, the Masked Crusader, here's my hypothesis on why such a high percentage of Hollywood elites have children that are messed up. Whether they're a mask activist, they're trans, they're non-binary, they're a drug addict, whatever expression their mental disorder is, here's why I think it is. Satan infiltrates them pretty well. There's no question, if you look at the Hollywood industrial complex and just ask yourself, is that run by God or is that run by Satan? Which one's more likely? Well, seems a lot more likely to be run by Satan. Do they instill good morals in movies? No, they don't. Do they instill demoralization, which is the intentional act of destroying morals? Yeah, they do that. They definitely do that. So not only do they, our films, our TV shows, all of our narratives, we're not going to bother instilling good morals. Like, for example, Brave Books does with kids' books, or Gus Plus Us, the kids' TV show, does with their show. They purposely instill good morals. But Hollywood says, yeah, not only we're not going to bother instilling good morals. Ain't our job. Fair enough. But we will purposely instill demoralization. We will purposely destroy morals and glorify that. So if you want to be part of the Hollywood elite club, that's what you're subscribing to. And typically, if you stop subscribing to it, they kick you out. Just ask Kevin Sorbo. So those people that subscribe to, well, let's just call it Satan's ways, the Hollywood elites, they have children. So those children are subscribed to their parents, not through choice, just through birth. Those children are subscribed to their parents, who are subscribed to a satanic cult. So does it make sense why the children on such a demographically unlikely high percentage are messed up? And again, however that messed upness symptomatically expresses itself, whether they say they're trans, they're non-binary, they're a mask activist, they're in drugs, does it make sense why they're so messed up? And if so, what you're about to watch from Violet Affleck will now make sense. Now here she is at the United Nations giving a very compelling, authoritative argument. What authority does she stand on? Well, Satan's authority. Okay, let her talk. Now the sound quality of this is a little low, but she's also a low quality human being, so that adds up. Let's have a listen.
For adults, the relentless beat of back to normal, ignoring, downplaying, and concealing both the prevalence of airborne transmission and the threat of long COVID, manifested in a series of choices. Young people lacked real choice in the matter and information about what was being chosen for us. Here's what we know about SARS-CoV-2. It is airborne, floating and lingering in the air. One infection can result in disabling damage to almost every cell in the body, from the brain and heart to the nerves and blood vessels.
That's a big claim. One infection of COVID can disable every cell in the body. I almost think she just made that up.
Every subsequent infection increases the risk of long COVID and places people who already have it in greater danger.
And it places you in danger of having natural immunity.
Here's what we don't know, is what it does to reinfect children over and over and over again with no end point in sight from the day they are born. We are about to find out. As Dr. Akiko Iwasaki says, at this point, the whole population is the control group. And after only 5 years, long COVID has surpassed asthma as the most common chronic illness in children.
I also don't know that that's true. But she's right. After only 5 years, we're no longer masking. I never did. But for the rest of she's right. We stopped masking after only 5 years? That is irresponsible. How about 5 generations? Then we start talking about it, okay?
5 years. I am terrified for the children who do not or soon will not know a world without debilitating pain and exhaustion.
By the way, she looks very terrified. That is the face. Mind you, you can't see her face because she's literally wearing a symbol that says, I'm afraid. This is a very fear-based thing. She looks like a very afraid, scared person.
Who cannot trust their bodies to play, explore, and imagine, and who will not know the potential of their own minds unfettered by the cognitive damage from a COVID-19 infection.
I like that. The cognitive damage of a COVID-19 infection. How about the cognitive damage of children who don't see faces? By the way, Violet, he, she, they, whatever it is, was 14 in 2020. So for the past 5 years, we have a social experiment in front of us of what happens to a 14-year-old when they don't see faces for 5 years. What are the results? Oh, that's the result?
And I am furious on their behalf. It is neglect of the highest order to look children in the eyes and say, we knew how to protect you, and we didn't do it. We have access to a technology to prevent airborne disease, something that millions of our ancestors and millions of people around the world today would kill for.
You know, I don't think our ancestors generations ago would kill for a mask. I literally, they wouldn't. They would eventually kill in the name of protecting their loved ones. They'd kill in the name of eating. I don't think they were out there like killing each other for masks.
And we refuse to use it. And I shudder to think of where we will be in another 5 years of unmitigated infection and reinfection.
It's yeah, in 5 years from now, it'll almost be like we're okay, and that'll be really bad. Can you imagine?
But let me say on this topic.
Good, pull that, Colby.
Well, I imagine no one.
We interrupt our ongoing studies in authoritarian sociopathy to bring you tonight's guest. You know him from What on Earth is Happening. He's a kick-ass long-form content creator, not only in the podcast world, but also those PowerPoint presentations for which he's so well known. I welcome back to Grand Theft World, Mark Passio. Mark, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty well, Richard. Thank you for having me on.
Well, thank you for staying up late for us.
Sure.
There was some talk about the tonight's title is something that you have some knowledge in, the apotheosis of Charlie Kirk, the turning into a godlike figure and attributing things that maybe never even happened in that individual's lifetime, but it's going to be known in the future. He's going to be on the money and all this good stuff, but also the authoritarian sociopathy that we were just seeing, like the United Nations in general, and then her talking specifics saying, you know, tensions are high, and it just says to me, mo money, mo problems. It doesn't seem like she's had a lot of benefits. Like the average person probably has a better lifestyle and peace of mind than those celebrity kids that are popping up these days. But do you keep abreast with any of the ongoing current events, or are you just down deep doing research and making presentations?
A little bit. I mean, I don't really get into politics and political conspiracy theory much. A lot of people think that that's what I do, but it has very, very little to do with my work. I really talk about occult psychology. I talk about the ability of what amounts to a cabal of ancient psychologists that have held deep psychological knowledge for countless generations, and what they are able to do to the human mind and to twist it into complete ridiculous areas of belief. So I don't spend my time analyzing endless vistas of politics and political theater. So, I commented on a recent interview that I think it's a tragic thing what happened to Charlie Kirk. No one should be executed summarily for speaking his mind. I think this has dangerous precedents regarding freedom of speech, but I don't really come down on either side of the political aisle in the left-right paradigm, because I'm a radical anarchist and not from a left-wing perspective, as many people believe anarchy actually is. Simply meaning I believe in nonviolence and a voluntary society, which is the opposite of authoritarianism. And the concept of authority is the main problem still to this day. People believing in this ridiculous, nonsensical, violent religion, and regardless of what side of the political aisle they polarize to, they still believe in this insane religion called some people get to command other people and tell them what they can and cannot do, even if they're not harming anybody else. So that is a claim of ownership. And this is what my work is to do. My work is to explain to people you believe in nonsense. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, because as soon as you tell somebody you're a member of a cult, they want to turn on you. They want to attack the messenger. They don't want to actually examine their own belief systems, their own mindset, their own psychology. No, no, no. I want to just go 100 miles an hour in the opposite direction from examination of myself. And I want to go and attack somebody who's telling me it's probably a good idea to examine what you actually believe and who implanted that belief system inside of your mind. That's what my work is to do. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I utterly, like, if anybody ever calls me that, I utterly resent the term. And it wouldn't really go well if someone called me that in person, because I lived an experience whereby I was actually in the presence of these social engineers. And they are psychopaths, they are lunatics, they are absolute vile people mentally, and they are just absolutely laughing at the dichotomy and the total polarization that they've created through dialectics in the human population. They're just pissing their pants laughing at everybody. And this is what I've been trying to explain to people. You think the real controllers of the world care whether you're having an argument of the ballistics of the event, or if you're arguing that it was a hologram, or if you're arguing that, you know, he's been taken off to some secure location and he was never shot. It's like, I don't get into these ridiculous theories and debate them. How about asking, what are you doing to morally better yourself? How about asking, what are you doing to help morally better other people? How are you explaining to people the actual objective difference between right behavior and wrong behavior? Are you involved in that educational outreach effort, or are you sitting trying to have debates with people over, you know, the how of some event that we're probably never going to have enough information to analyze, let alone understand exactly what happened? This is not the point. The point is, they're creating a dichotomy and a polarization between two sides to get them to war with each other. If you can't understand the psychological dynamics and implications of that, you're not really an adult human being in the year 2025. And understand this is what all authoritarian figures want to do, because that weakens the people that they enslave, and it sends power up the chain of obedience right to them through their order followers that they're going to command and say, oh, we got to do something to manage all the resultant chaos. People aren't psychologically sophisticated enough to understand these people's operations and modus operandi, because they haven't worked enough upon themselves to gather enough information about the psychological tactics. That's what I explain to people. I explain methodologies of psychological mind control. I explain how all religion is polarization. All religion is teaching people not to be able to truly think. It's teaching them simply to believe in something that is told to them. And that goes for the whole concept of politics, the whole concept of authority, the whole concept of government. Anybody that comes down on any of the sides of any of that is just completely psychologically weak, and they've been completely played by the rulers of the world, by the actual social engineers that are Satanists, that are dark Luciferians, that are absolutely evil psychopaths. And they're laughing at everybody. They're absolutely peeing their pants laughing at how easy it is to manipulate their slaves.
And I think the political violence is the eventual admission of their intellectual bankruptcy. But by that time, it's setting precedent for other people to take ill action. And I really want to focus in on what you're talking about in the divide and conquer psychology that the rulers have always used. Like, they even had like Latin phrases, like it goes back into ancient China and the emperors there. Learning, in order to conquer, they must first be divided. And there's been a lot of history of how they do that. And we can see, like, real time right now, they are getting people to, they're getting rid of neutral people that would sit down and ask a question and have a conversation about it. And you're left with the extremes who are willing to take violence on both sides, right? You got the formation recently of, what is it? The John Brown Gun Club. And they, you know, there are sparks being thrown all over dry pine needles. And it's like, they're trying to make a fire. How do we tamp it down and get people to put some space between their stimulus and reaction and get some thoughtful responses out?
Well, to go to one of the points that you first made there, I don't recall the Latin off the top of my head, but it's a phrase that was used in the ancient Latin world, and it goes something to the effect of, let he who would be deceived be deceived. And what that means is if you're stupid enough to fall for a scam, you deserve to be scammed. And this is what the psychological rulers of our planet, this has always been their mindset. If we can pull the wool over your eyes and you're stupid enough to fall for it, then you don't really deserve any respect or common decency shown to you because you're a stupid person. And that's essentially how they see us. They see us as dumb cattle to be completely scammed and gamed and ruled, just like a farmer would rule over a farm and all the animals on it. And this is the whole point, is what I'm trying to explain to people is, if you're not bettering yourself, see, there's four essential or primary destroyers of consciousness. And this goes back to my earliest work when I first came out publicly almost 2 decades ago. And started speaking on this after I left the cult. After I actually left the social engineering cult that is actually running this whole farm called Earth, and developed a conscience, or at least my conscience broke away from the limitations that it was under, and I finally said, no, I can't do this anymore, and I'm going to become a whistleblower. If people want to apply a term to me and what I do, don't apply the term conspiracy theorist. I don't deal in theories. I'm a whistleblower. That's what I am. I was in the cult, and now I'm whistleblowing about what the cult does. And they told me back then, 20-something odd years ago, you'll be banging your head against a concrete wall for the rest of your natural life until the day you die. And so far, that statement to me has not been proven untrue. That's basically what I've been doing with very little progress, with very little success, because I found it to be true what they were saying about people. People don't want to work on themselves. They don't want to see their own limitations. They don't want to see the ways that their consciousness is limited. They don't want to see their own inadequacies. They want to attack anybody that has defeated those limitations and inadequacies inside themselves, that because they're jealous of that state. They look at themselves and they hate themselves. They're self-loathing people because they've allowed the destroyers of consciousness to overtake them. And the four primary destroyers of consciousness, as is taught in just about every ancient occult tradition and any mystery tradition on this planet, the four things that absolutely degrade and destroy us internally are ignorance, apathy, cowardice, and laziness. Those are the four primary annihilators of human consciousness. And this is what the human population does not want to turn inwardly and work on to defeat. They want to stay ignorant because it's very easy to conjecture about a million theories and postulate all kinds of nonsense and garbage. It's easy to do that. That doesn't take any actual knowledge. That's like just dream something up and float it out there and see what sticks to the wall. That's what theorizing is, especially when it comes to political theater and political drama. To actually try to work on yourself and gain true self-knowledge, that's hard work. To defeat apathy within oneself, such that you're not a black-pilled, complete, I've given up and just let evil take the world because there's nothing we can do about it. That takes work to work on true care, to actually care about human rights and human freedom, and to care about suffering that is going on in the world due to actual injustice and actual authoritarian slavery, which we are under. That takes hard work to work on your heart-based intelligence, to defeat cowardice and inaction and laziness inside of you, such that you learn how to communicate, you learn how to publish, you learn how to put knowledge out into the world, you learn technology, you learn how to act in an effective capacity. You learn how to actually truly morally educate your fellow man and woman. That takes hard work and determination and a never say die attitude. That takes willpower. That takes getting up off of someone's lazy ass and actually doing right action in the world. That takes defeating the cowardice of not wanting to speak out and putting a target on yourself. That takes getting out of laziness and inaction and just wanting creature comfort and pleasure for yourself. That's all extremely difficult work to do internally. That's what wins the war for freedom, not endless speculation and conspiracy theorizing. It's inward work to build a better human being, first in the self, and then to assist others to engage in that same process. How many people are really engaged in that? It's such a tiny few. It's absolutely laughable, is my answer to that question. And that's why we're not making any headway and we're not making any progress. That's why we're losing the war for freedom, because people aren't engaging in moral education. All they want to do is spout their opinion endlessly instead of actually turning inward, looking at the limitations and inadequacies in the self and healing those things, turning inward and healing past trauma so that you're just not somebody that just wants to blurt out everything about, oh, I'll say the first thing that comes to my mind because I want to be heard and I want to be recognized. You know, this is not about that. This is about building a world that is based in freedom because we're bettering the humans that comprise the world. There's a law in the universe, natural law, however you want to break it down, ultimately is saying one thing to the people of the universe, to anywhere you live in the 3D universe. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, freedom is reserved for good people. In order to be free, you must be good. And that means, do you understand true morality? And what are you doing to spread true morality? That's the questions that need to be asked inwardly of ourselves. And my question to everybody out in the listening audience is, and viewing audience is, how many people are actually engaged in that work instead of endlessly speculating, analyzing politics, conspiracy theorizing? You know, you're describing the patterns on the furniture of a sinking ship. That's what people in the freedom movement are doing these days. That ain't going to get you anywhere. It ain't going to get you to safety. It certainly ain't going to get you to salvation. And it just seems like no matter where I look in just about any media, people are not talking about these dynamics. They want to endlessly analyze political theater. That's not getting us anywhere. That's the analysis of patterns on furniture on a sinking ship. You got to turn inward. You got to do inner work. You got to build a better human being inwardly first, and you got to help other people become more moral and build a better being of themselves. If we're not engaged in that work, don't expect freedom. Freedom doesn't arrive or come to a people who don't do that type of work. And humanity right now is not that kind of species. We are not doing that as a whole in the aggregate, and that's why we don't have freedom, and that's why we're not going to get freedom in the long run. And that's not black-pilled. I am not a black-pilled individual. I definitively know that true freedom is possible. But it carries requirements. Just like you want to build or you want to bake the best cake imaginable. You know, a cake my grandfather used to make that was unbelievable that he did was a pineapple upside down cake. You want to bake one of the best pineapple upside down cakes. You know what? It has requirements. There are stepwise procedures. There are ingredients. You get high quality ingredients, you follow the stepwise procedures. Now you've met the requirements. You bake it properly, you take it out at the right time, it's going to come out wonderful and taste great. There's requirements for that. Well, guess what? There's requirements for achieving a state of human freedom as well. And if you don't know what the requirements are, and if you don't meet the requirements, it doesn't just magically manifest because you want it to. That's just the the raw realist perspective. I'm not a negativist. I'm not a positivist. I'm not somebody who sees the world through rose-colored glasses, and I'm not a black-pilled pessimist either. I'm a realist, and I look at the actual dynamics and the actual requirements to meet a stated objective. And if we're not meeting those requirements, it doesn't just magically manifest. A hand from above just doesn't come down and say, here, let me give you what you want just because you had good intentions. That's not how reality and the laws of nature work, unfortunately.
I've got a theory that
Yeah.
I'm hoping that you could I just want to hear your thoughts on this. So nice to meet you, Mark. My name's Scott. Anyway, so I have this theory that like a government will move in and capitalize. It like fills the vacuum of a low morality community. So, and what I mean by that is like, for example, when you have a high trust, high morality community, like some like rural places around here, you know, it's like everybody knows each other, everybody watches out for each other. Generally, they have shared principles and values, and they have like one sheriff that sits at the coffee shop, some like old timer, and he's like, "Hey, Fred, how you doing?" You know, that's the government. They have a stoplight in the town, and that's the amount of government they have. They have a stoplight and like some old sheriff in the town. But then when you have a community where there's no common culture, no singular shared morality, and it's just bereft of any morality, and it's just high crime everywhere, the government is in your face everywhere. So to me, that tells me that kind of what you're saying, it starts with the individual building the skills and becoming anti-fragile and just eliminating cowardice, ignorance in your own life, and then spreading outward to build a high trust communities and then scaling that. And I'm curious if that's kind of along the lines of what you were talking about.
I would 100% concur and agree that that is ultimately what we need to do. It starts from the ground up. It's not something that we need to look to leaders to do. It's something that individuals have to perform upon themselves. And you know where that really ultimately starts? It starts with good parenting. It starts with good, conscious parenting. It starts with people who are going to bring children into the world, looking into what is the actual difference between right and wrong behavior. Be an example of that for yourself, in yourself, and then pass that along to your children and instill those actual moral values in your progeny. And this is the problem. Our culture is not doing that. Worldwide, culture is not doing that because we are trying to leave it up to the institutions to raise our children, to the educational system, to the media, to the government. And all of those things are not designed to morally raise individuals. This is the ultimate solution. The ultimate solution is true moral education. And if you're going to do that, then you have to make it a primary goal to truly understand the difference between real right and wrong, not religious morality. See, this is the one of the first things I have to delineate and I have to explain, because when people hear me even say the word morality, they're so mind controlled and conditioned into immediately associating that with religion that I have to explain to them absolutely incorrect. I am not talking about any religion, because I know that the religious traditions, no matter what they are, doesn't matter what organized religion, are actually created and designed to steer people away from true objective morality. This is what the controllers of this planet set up as a system of confusion and deceit to get people not to understand what objective morality is. And so their behavior can never really come into true compliance with objective morality. That's what the controllers want. They want a million different competing systems. This is a system of dialectics, okay? It's basically setting up a complete system of moral confusion. That is what all religion is. And it doesn't matter, again, when I say the word religion, I'm not just talking about traditional cultural religions like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, etc. Although they are contained within that phrase, it also means all wrong systems of thinking, all wrong systems of thought that are absolutely morally incorrect and untrue. The love of money and comfort is a religion. The worship of authority is a religion. The belief in authority is a religion. The belief that government has any moral moral legitimacy itself is a religion. Anything that you put 100% faith into and you believe axiomatically without actual logic and proof constitutes a religion. So I don't say the phrase, the term religion, just meaning traditional, regional, cultural, religious beliefs like the major world religions. I mean it as any state of consciousness, any belief system, I should say, that tries to put your consciousness into a state of limitation and confusion. And that is what all religious morality is. They all claim different things are moral and different things are immoral. So how could any of them be true? They're all conflicting belief systems regarding what objective morality is. And it's all nonsense. All of it comes down to this is just what people made up. You can definitively recognize what true objective morality is if you actually understand natural law and what are rights because they are behaviors that do not initiate harm upon others, and what behaviors are wrongdoings or transgressions against natural law rights because they actually do initiate harm upon other people. Measurable, demonstrable harm, the diminishing of a being in some capacity, not hurting someone's feelings, but actually taking something from them, diminishing the person in some respect, whether it has to do with life, rights, or property in some form. And all the wrongdoings that can be listed under natural law are in one form or another, a form of theft, a form of taking something that doesn't belong to you to take from another. So again, you could look at religious systems of morality, which are there to sow the seeds of confusion and to lead people away from objective morality. And you look at something like the 7 deadly sins of the Catholic belief system. Let's look at. I always bring this up as an example. They say that the sins, the biggest sins that you could commit in this religion are pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, and greed. And none of these are a behavior. Everything I just said there is not a behavior. They're either internal states of emotion or they are states of engaging in something too much. They are a form of indulgence. Self-indulgence. So not one of those 7 things, pride, gluttony, sloth, lust, anger, jealousy, and greed, is a behavior that is actually done to another individual, another being, not to the self, to another being, because that's what moral harm, immoral behavior, harm against another being is the initiation of violence upon them or theft upon their being or their property in some form. So look at the actual real transgressions against natural law, the real immoral behaviors, which is what we should be teaching everybody and teaching our children. These are the behaviors we should not ever engage in, no matter what we're offered, no matter how much we're paid, no matter how big of a paycheck, no matter what we're promised. You don't do these behaviors: murder, assault, rape, theft, trespass, coercion, and deception, all forms of theft. So, and all direct behaviors that you do against another being, upon another being. Murder, the theft of life without right. Not killing in self-defense. Murder is the theft of life without the right to do so. Assault, theft of bodily well-being, an individual's property, health in their body. Rape, theft of freedom to sexually associate with whom you will. That's coercion, that's violence, that's the theft of sexual association through someone's free will. Theft, stealing physical property, trespass, taking someone's security in their living space or in their property, coercion, taking someone's free will without right. That's what all government is. It's coercion and duress. It's the theft of someone else's free will through the belief that some people are authorities that get to command and other people are slaves that have to obey. That's coercion. That's the destruction of free will, the greatest gift of the universe. And deception. You're stealing someone's ability to make an informed choice through accurate information by willfully sowing disinformation and lies. And that's what the deceivers do. That's what the media does. That's what the social engineers do, to throw us off course and not get us to understand the actual keys to human freedom. It all comes down to one law. As morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. Freedom and morality are directly proportional in any given society in the aggregate. That's it. That's what natural law is. And until humanity understands that and spreads that knowledge, expect slavery. Nothing else can result under universal natural law. It's an impossibility to achieve freedom in that state of ignorance of true morality. I've laid it out there in the quickest nutshell that I can for people. If people want to ignore that, they ignore it at their own peril and at their own slavery, because that's what's going to result. And it already has resulted. It's just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse until we get out of the whole political drama, political theater drama, and start talking about actual objective morality and teaching that to our young and spreading that to as many people within the sound of our voice. The only message that I have for humanity is expect more slavery. That's what's coming.
You did a wonderful job of being the brevity and succinctness. Over the years, you're able to condense it down and not lose the power, the meaning. But if I want to play it back, it's like the way you just explained it is, it's so simple. And it's almost as if they make the law artificially complex so that people can't understand it or follow it.
Yep.
And then, the way you explained it, there would be no market for lawyers.
Nope.
Right. So there's that part. And then the next part is government schooling is the religion of government. That's where people are learning all the morals and dogma of that system, that it's okay to pay, I vote, I pay some taxes, they send some bombs, they kill some people who had nothing to do with anything. For the most part, that's gone on in the 21st century. So now from that resulting corruption of schooling and the corruption of education to indoctrinate people into this belief system, then they become apathetic, ignorant, like your whole list, right? And then it jumps over to them and their behavior. Now they can superficially judge things from afar with their superpowers of ignorance. They never need to get in and actually try hard or develop themselves or practice to achieve competence and proficiency, because they could just know from looking at this, here's a snapshot of someone doing something. They're like, oh, they can judge it from afar. So there's rewards for those epitomes of ignorance that tie back to your comments on social media and current events. There's a lot of people that don't even know how to think, and then they're just like, imagine this. And there's other people who don't know how to dismiss that as arbitrary and move on, and they all get caught up. And then there's people like us who are seeing that whole traffic jam as we're moving on the country roads, making progress every day. So going back to your not black pill perspective, but too few people have learned these teachings, right?
Yes.
I look at it like exponential function. So at the beginning, it looks like there's nothing going on, but at some point there's going to be a critical mass, because people are noticing all sorts of stuff all over the place these days, especially since COVID. A lot of people they woke up for no reason. They don't even know why they're red pilled, but they're just skeptical. Whereas in the past, it was like the Cassandra complex of you're knowing the future and no one believes it and you can't really do much about it. And you don't want to go join the bad guys who profit from it. It's then you get that Ben Affleck meme look where you're like, right? But the civil war that they're trying to drum up, the psychological pressures and triggers that they're waging on both sides to make them think that they're right and they have the right to go commit violence on the other side, which is the epitome of not freedom.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. How many people can easily be whipped into a political frenzy and furor because they've identified with political belief systems. See, all government is there to do is demoralize people. It's there to make you an obedient slave. That's it. That's all it wants. It wants compliance and obedience, and it wants demoralization. And literally, demoralization means making you a less moral person. It's not just about morale as far as how you feel, whether you feel good or not. It's the demoralization as far as your morals are concerned, because it wants you to accept something that it's completely on its face immoral, which is the claim of ownership. That's slavery. See, authority is the claim that you own another being. And anybody that says that that's not true is just completely, absolutely incorrect. If I have an authority over another being, that means they don't have free will, that their behavior must comply with my will. So their will is completely owned and controlled by me if I'm claiming authority over them. Any entity that claims authority over another being is claiming ownership over another being because they're saying, I'm in control of your free will and your behavior. How can anybody claim that government is in slavery? There are people, see, it rewards the incompetent, it rewards the stupid, it rewards the lazy, and it punishes people who are actually contributing something and building anything and creating anything, because it says all of the fruits of your labor, or not all of them, but the percentage of the fruits of your labor that we say we are going to confiscate and take for our use, you have to turn over to us. You have to comply with that command and turn that over to us. There are people who are actually productive human beings making enough that the government says, I'm going to come in and take half or over half of what you have produced and created. If that's not the definition of slavery, then I don't know what is. You see, the question that people have to ask is, if 100% of the confiscation of the fruit of your labor constitutes slavery, what number can the confiscation of labor percentage-wise be lowered to that no longer constitutes that behavior as slavery? And if you're being honest with yourself, if you're not a liar, if you're not an immoral liar, then you would realize there's no such thing as a percentage that taxation can be lowered to become moral magically. That's only done in the gymnastics of a sick brain. That's the only place that that could be done and say, yeah, we can lower it to this amount and then it's moral. No, you can't. You're just lying to yourself. See, this is the kind of stuff that I explain to people. This is what you have to do. You have to look at yourself in a mirror, and you have to commit to not lying to yourself like an immoral piece of trash does. Because that's what immoral trash does. They just keep lying to themselves. They keep lying to everybody else. They scam other people, and they even scam themselves because they're actually not even telling themselves the truth because they're self-loathing. This is what all government does. Government is a religion. The belief in authority is a religion. Politics is a religion. The worship of money is a religion. See, this is the thing, is everybody's identified. They're identified with a system, with a belief system, with an institution. That's what religion is. Identification with the non-natural, with constructs that only exist in a diseased mind. That's what all religion is. And people will just cling to it like a maggot to dead flesh because they don't know anything else, and they're too cowardly to step away and out into the wilderness of thinking for oneself. That's what it all comes down to. This is what I teach. This is why I deplore the label conspiracy theorist. Just everybody out there, don't ever apply that label to me. Go apply it to some sacks of garbage that want to engage in conspiracy theorizing. I am a moral teacher of humanity, a teacher of morality to the completely degraded species called human beings, trying to rebuild them into moral individuals. That's what I do. I don't conspiracy theorize. Okay? So, and again, I'm a whistleblower for the satanic elite because I was involved with them in my youth. I got involved. They wanted to groom me to make me one of their social engineers at some point. I saw what they were doing to enslave, and I said, no, I'm out. And people say, oh, you can't leave once you get involved. You don't know what you're talking about. You've never been in that position, and I have. And I'm telling you, it doesn't just work like a mafia, even though it is a form of a mafia. But unless you know where the bodies are buried, they'll let you walk right out the door and say, don't let it hit you on the ass on the way out, boy. And if you haven't been in that position, then don't tell me what my life experience was. This is my problem with people. You know, I'm telling people what real Satanism is because I was a priest within that religion in my youth. And I'm explaining to them what the actual tenets and ideologies of Satanism actually are, because I was clergy in this religion in my past and came out of it because I had a profound spiritual and moral awakening. And yes, that is possible. And no, you shouldn't just distrust somebody. You should actually listen to what they're saying. You shouldn't just blindly trust them, but you shouldn't just immediately say that disqualifies you from ever being able to speak truth. This is an imbecile mind who thinks like that. It's a child who thinks unidimensionally. You know, it's somebody who's not even playing checkers, let alone playing chess and understanding strategies that are involved in the global chessboard. These are little children who think in religious terms. Oh, this good, this bad. You were once this. You can never change. And you know what it shows? It shows how much they have. It shows how much self-loathing they have deep in their own black hearts, because they know they're not capable of changing because they're cowards and they're weaklings and they're ignorant and they haven't studied and they haven't taken enough information into themselves and they don't know what real morality is. Essentially, it's trash looking inside themselves and saying, I know I can't change, so nobody's capable of changing. Well, that's where you're wrong. All the black-pilled, black-hearted souls out there who just want to say, no, nobody's capable of changing. You have no idea what you're talking about. Keep it to yourself, because that's who you're applying that belief system to. People, bad people, who I was once a bad person, are capable, with hard work and determination and iron willpower, are capable of transcending evil and becoming a good person. And that's what I did through unimaginably hard work and hard-won knowledge. Not belief systems, not religion, knowledge. Knowledge about what was going on inside myself and my psychology, and knowledge of what the global controllers are actually doing to people, because I was actually involved with them in a first-hand, real-life capacity. So when people tell me that's ridiculous, that's nonsense, Al, you're explaining Satanism doesn't jibe with what my pastor told me. You have no idea what you're talking about. You have no firsthand experience. And don't tell me the experience that I lived in my life. That's where we're going to butt heads big time. And this is what I make no bones about it. You know, I'm telling you, I came from the other team. I have the playbook of the other team, and I'm practically throwing it in people's lap, and they want to smack it right out of your hand. They're not interested because they hate themselves. That's what it ultimately comes down to. They haven't dealt with past trauma. They haven't done any true spiritual work upon themselves, and they think suddenly you're going to manifest external change. You're going to sit in a slave chamber and rot, is what you're going to do, because you haven't done any of the internal work that needs to be done. And if you hear the anger in my voice, if you hear the frustration in my voice, you should realize that's the proper emotional response, because there are good people in this world, and they're being enslaved by the idiots of it. They're being enslaved by the people that don't want to look inward and don't want to change themselves and don't want to help others to change. All they want to do is spew nonsense because they want attention. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about the real hard spiritual work that goes on inside of an individual. And a pissant amount of humanity is doing any part of that work.
What do we do?
Post-traumatic growth.
What do we do with all the immoral scum criminals that aren't willing to change, that have no interest in changing? Can't we just deploy the National Guard to the city to take care of them?
I don't believe that's the responsibility of any government agency, because I don't believe government should exist at all. It's the responsibility of the people to clean that mess up, because who created it? The people created it. They created the mess by not morally raising their damn children. And then you want to cry to an external entity to come in and sweep the mess up that we made? If someone spills a bunch of garbage all over my kitchen floor, I'm going to tell them to clean it up, because they made the mess. They're responsible for it. They should clean it up. It shouldn't be left to somebody else to clean up. This is the situation that we are in, and people believe the most ridiculous, nonsensical answers are the solutions. Religion's never going to teach you morality. It wasn't designed to do that. Government's never going to create freedom. It wasn't designed to do that. You got to understand what the ostensible purposes of institutions are and what the true purposes of institutions are. And you're not going to learn that from the media. You're not going to learn that from school books. You're going to have to go into very deep workings of psychology and occultism to find that work, of hidden knowledge, knowledge that isn't meant for the average everyday Joe. It's people who did the deep psychological work as a labor of love and then published it for other people to find, that are truly driven to find that knowledge. And once again, if I say the word occult and it frightens you, you're a child. You know, it's like all occult means is hidden knowledge. That's it. And why would it be hidden? Because people at high levels of power don't want people who are slaves to learn the knowledge that they know, because they want to keep leveraging that knowledge as a power differential. And the people who believe in all the nonsense of what the institutions are designed to do. You believe the media is telling you the truth. You believe the government's there to protect your rights. You believe the pharmaceutical cartels care about your damn health. You believe the educational system cares about your edification and education. You're out of your mind. You're out of your gourd. You are gone. You're a gone goose if that's what people think and believe. It's a naive 2-year-old with pooped diapers waddling around. That's literally what it is. And that's most of humanity. Let's face it. That's what most of this species is. They're naive children who hate themselves, who want to believe any of the nonsense that all the institutions have told them. And what I'm trying to do is explain to people what the real purposes of these institutions are. Government's there to strip you of your rights and make you an obedient slave. The pharmaceutical cartels want you sick. The medical industry want you sick so they can keep making endless profit off your illness. They're not trying to cure disease. I worked in a medical establishment. I worked in the University of Pennsylvania's School of Medicine Research Division in biomedical research. I literally heard department heads, because I was ahead of technology, ahead of certain groups of technology. I was the lead technical specialist who did desktop support for hematology, oncology, cardiology, rheumatology, et cetera, in their research laboratories. So I have a background in that as well, in technology, in working inside the medical field, hearing what doctors and researchers were saying. They were openly saying, we don't look for cures. We're not here to cure anything. We're looking for treatments that can be sold to people. They were just blatantly saying it out in the open. These people don't care about you. Government doesn't care about you. It's there to control you. The educational system is not there to make you smart. It's there to make you dumb, so you can't actually engage in true critical thinking and logic through the trivium. They don't want to teach you the trivium method of grammar, logic, and rhetoric, of gathering information in an eclectic capacity so you can pour through it over many, many, many man-hours of time and then come to a logical understanding through logical transforms and weeding out logical inconsistencies, so that you could truly understand what the data set means and then act upon it rightly by disseminating what it actually means to other people. They don't want you engaged in that process. That's why the trivium was stripped from the educational model. And people don't even know this. They don't know it because they're dumb, naive children who haven't grown up, who haven't worked upon themselves, who have not worked on their internal traumas, who have not really truly gotten rid of their self-loathing. And that's why they want to stay slaves and stay in religious thought. It's people who hate themselves, who somehow believe the sick notion that the universe was created to torture us. I accept that there's a creator. I don't accept it. I know it. Factually, the universe is not some clockwork dead mechanism of matter. If you believe that, I got a couple of bridges in New York City to sell you. This is all dynamically, intelligently driven by an absolutely, completely unimaginably powerful force. And I'm not here to tell you what that is. I'm not here to push religion on somebody. I'm here to tell you that it structured all of the order and laws of the universe. That's what I know it did. And we're governed by those laws. We're not exempt from them behaviorally. They not only govern the laws of matter, they govern the laws of behavior. That's why if you behave one way, you get enslaved. If you keep condoning for immorality, you get enslaved. That's what humanity has done. We've behaved immorally and we've condoned immoral behavior. You know what happens to a species that does that in the aggregate over thousands of years? Slavery. That's where we're at. If you want to get out of that, you got to change the behavior, because then the natural law gives you the opposite result. It's so simple, it's almost stupid that this would have to be explained. And this is what the actual laws of the Creator are, not what nonsensical religion tells you not to eat meat on this day of the week and do this and that, whatever. Wear these kind of clothes here, but not here. And it's just nonsense. And people can't see it as nonsense because they're so indoctrinated into it by their parents, by their family, by their teachers, by their clergy. It's just dumb people perpetuating stupidity instead of actually learning what the laws of the Creator actually are. This is why I'm angry. This is why I'm frustrated. I don't enjoy this. This is not what I want to do. I want to live my life in freedom and have a decent time while I'm in a fucking body. Pardon my language. That's what I want for myself, and that's what I want for everybody else. It's very simple. I don't want self-inflicted suffering perpetuated constantly in our species. There's a way to do that. There's an answer. There's a way out. You got to think differently. You got to stop believing in total crap that's been fed to us. And we put it up on a pedestal like we put our parents up on a pedestal. So many people, their parents have completely screwed them up, taught them totally immoral things. And, oh, they're such good people. I put them up on a pedestal. I practically worship them. It's like, why do people do that just because you're biologically related? And I'm not knocking the family or the family system. I think that has to be strong, but it's got to be based in true morality and truth. The whole point is, how many people's parents screwed them up by telling them things that further traumatized them, that they told them, oh, this isn't for you. You're not here to do great things. You're here to be mediocre. You're here to go do manual labor. You're not that smart. You're not that talented. Don't try to aim too high. That parents teach people to miss the target all the time, to not even set the bar high and aim for a worthy pursuit or cause. And then we want to say, oh, we should just put them up on a pedestal because we're biologically related to them. This is nonsense. This is how all the nonsense gets perpetuated and the trauma gets perpetuated. The trauma cycle gets perpetuated down to the next generation after generation after generation. We got to break that cycle of abuse and ignorance and laziness and cowardice. And that's carried on by the family system. Absolutely. It's carried on by religion. It's carried on by educational systems. It's carried on by all the institutions. All of the institutions are fraudulent. Not some of them, all of them. All of them. And people have to stop identifying with them. They have to stop their personal ego identification with those entities and institutions. And that's why we're not freeing ourselves, because people are latched onto those things. And when you latch onto what's incorrect, see, this is why right, correct leads to right morally. Wrong, incorrect leads to wrong behavior. It's not an accident that we use those words for different concepts. You're right. Well, you're correct. You did what was right. You did what was moral. You're wrong. You're incorrect. You just did what was wrong, what was immoral. There's no accident that those words are the same, because what is correct leads to what is morally right, and what is incorrect leads to what is morally wrong. This is why being correct is so important. This is why learning how to think is so important. You can't just arbitrarily choose things based on your feelings and your emotions. You have to be able to think logically and know how to go about truth discovery through the trivia methodology. And that's why they've removed it from the education system, to keep people dumb so that they can enslave them. I don't know what else I can even really say if people don't get what I've talked about. If you can't really comprehend what I've talked about, people just need to really look inward and look in a damn mirror and ask the question, what the hell is wrong with you? Not me, not Mark Passio. Mark Passio's fine. Mark Passio, as a former Satanist who came out of it and actually became a moral person and desisted in his former evil ways, I'm going to be fine. You don't need to worry about me. People need to look in the mirror and worry about themselves.
You got to get that URL too to go along with what on earth is happening. Get what the hell is wrong with you.com.
Yeah, exactly. Redirect.
I thought you were going to tell them to get markpassiosfine.com. That's a good one too. Mark, you speak with great parrhesia, and it's welcome, and I can tell you care. And we've addressed those who won't get it. Let's talk to those who do get it. When are you hosting How to Be the True Media? When are you doing the solutions part of it? And also, side question, have you ever done like stand-up? Because you are so close to having like a Carlin-esque stand-up act, because you have enough knowledge to make fun of the stuff, and that's all that's necessary.
Richard, this is why I love you, because I mean, I would have loved to do other things with my existence. Comedy might have been one of them. I joke around with people, but like, I loved watching like old painting shows, right? Like after pro wrestling on Saturday afternoon, like watching painting with Bob Ross or whatever.
For sure, dude. Yeah.
I had the paint set and all.
I
wanted to become an artist, and maybe I could have if I really developed those skills. That never materialized. I always say
this isn't Bob Ross style, but this
nice.
is. I try to get it on. It's Picasso during his blue period.
See, that's another thing, Richard. You never cease to amaze me with your talent, man. You're a man of many talents. I'll tell you. I heard you sing at Pork Fest. Damn, man. I mean, you were singing some Doors songs. It was like you got a hell of a voice.
I just learned that last summer. For 51 years, I was scared to be in
That's
karaoke.
Unbelievable.
Position. It would have been like one of my worst fears. There was a time, not like probably 18 months ago, you could have said, "Hey, $10,000 for charity. We want you to sing karaoke," and I'd be like, "I'm not even going to try. I know I can't do it."
Well, I was highly impressed, I got to say.
Well, thank you. That's very kind of you. And I was more of an artist of the painting variety before I started getting into like all this history and reading. And it's like I could learn about the people trying to take away our freedom forever, or I could, follow my passions as an artist. I like to think that these shows each week are my form of like practical conceptual art, because I'm bringing the history all together and doing it live.
This is absolutely a form of artistic creation, no question about it. So, I liked sports. I played baseball and football when I was young, not the greatest at them, but appreciated them. And I got very good at bowling, with very little practice. It just came naturally to me. I just got really good at it. Like I got to like throwing like in the 260s at some point. Wow. I threw it. My high game is a 265. I mean, that's like with very little practice. And I'm not saying that to brag. Like I just never was like, I'm going to become a bowler and go to the lanes every day. That's like going with friends once a week, going outside and like lighting up some cannabis and going onto the lanes and like just having fun, so imagine if I took it seriously, probably could have been a great. There's many things I would have liked to have done.
When you're in those modalities, when you're doing that thing, you feel freedom, because that's what I feel from the karaoke.
You get in the zone
for a couple minutes. Yeah, you get in that. All right, so How to Be the True Media. Are you teaching it again this year?
Yeah, regarding solutions, once you understand what the real solution is, which is true morality, which is true objective morality, and understanding how natural law works to bring us the results and the consequences of our free will behavioral decisions, you have to communicate that to other people. So what I teach is the technology of how that is done. You want to become a podcaster, you want to make videos and documentaries, you want to publish books. Like I'm going to show you in this tech seminar from the very beginning of how to use an operating system all the way through to how to build a website. So this is what I do. It's called howtobecomethitruemedia.com, because we need truth tellers in the new media, right? We don't have to just be the new media. We have to be the true media, the truth telling media. And this course runs 23 weeks in succession, 1 day a week, 1 night a week. And it's held on Telegram. And I basically teach this course over a 6-month period from January through June every year. You can check it out, howtobecomethitruemedia.com. In addition to that, I'm going to be hosting a seminar on internal work, the spiritual work that actually has to be done to change ourselves inwardly, not looking at the external dynamics. I do that through whatonearthishappening.com. I explain to people what's really going on in the world, the methodologies of control that are being employed against us, talk about some of the occult factors and ideologies that are out there, teach true positive occultism, what I refer to as the body of knowledge known as the light occult knowledge, which is how natural law actually functions in our lives. What we have to do to actually change ourselves if we want to see change manifested in the outer world around us. So this seminar is called Mark Passio's Shadow Work Seminar. And it is not, if you've heard this term before, if you're expecting it to be anything like New Age variants of so-called shadow work, it is absolutely not that. This is very deep, hard questions that we must pose to ourselves and then work through how we have already been, how we have been conditioned, what we have been taught that is false and untrue, and what you got to say to yourself to get your mind right, to recondition and reprogram the subconscious. And then what do you have to do to actually get involved and take right real world action? That's the seminar coming up in November 22nd of this year, which is, I guess, less than 2 months away now. And enrollment is still open. You can enroll at whatonearthishappening.com. It's called Mark Passio's Shadow Work Seminar. This is probably going to be the most profound internal spiritual presentation that I have ever delivered. You were there and filmed and edited my natural law seminar, which is considered my magnum opus. That's considered the best body of work that I have ever produced. And it is the most important body of work. And I thank you for being there and doing that work to help me assist getting that out to the public, Richard. This is going to be a lot different because it's really going to be about the individual and how they must look at themselves inwardly in order to change into the kind of person they have to become to really be a champion of true freedom. So it's going to be some difficult work for a lot of people engaging it. And once again, I just have to state emphatically, it is not New Age shadow work. This is real occult shadow work that I will be teaching and showing a methodology for.
Well, Mark, you've been an evangelist for freedom over the years, and I consider you a fellow abolitionist of the 21st century variety. I think you're a whistleblowing warrior, not a conspiracy theorist. And I appreciate you making so much time in your schedule tonight to share your wisdom, to elucidate these ideas for the audience. And I know a lot of our audience was shaking their head the whole time, agreeing with you and not saying, I don't get what he's talking about. So
excellent. Richard, thank you so much. I consider you a highly respected peer. I love what you do. Please continue. And thank you for all of your efforts, my friend.
Well, thank you. And we'll talk to each other soon. Hopefully we'll do another in real life event. We'll have an occasion to get together.
Look forward to it.
All right. See you soon, Mark. Peace.
Take care.
All right. Now, Scott, did I leave you not able to ask your questions?
Oh, no. Yeah. Thank you for letting me jump in there.
What if the biggest obstacle to freedom is the darkness you've been avoiding within yourself? On Saturday, November 22nd, 2025, Mark Passio of What on Earth is Happening will deliver his all-new Shadow Work Seminar. This will be a live, all-day, online event hosted on the Telegram platform from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. In this intensive seminar, Mark will explain the critical importance of shadow work and why it is so desperately needed in the lives of those in the pro-freedom community. For the first time ever, Mark will reveal his very own personal method of shadow work, taking his guests on a deep dive into the difficult but necessary process of personal spiritual exploration and self-actualization. For those wishing to go deeper into the inner work that is required for true freedom, this seminar is one that you will not want to miss. Enrollment is now open, but space is limited. So, if you're ready to stop avoiding and start transforming, join Mark Passio's Shadow Work Seminar by visiting whatonearthishappening.com. Calling all potential content creators. Do you want to teach natural law and objective morality to assist in the great work of ending human slavery? Mark Passio from whatonearthishappening.com is inviting you to join How to Become the True Media, an intensive 23-week online technology skill-sharing seminar. This year, How to Become the True Media is moving to the first half of the year, January through June. Classes will be held every Monday night from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. Join the seminar and gain the skills to morally educate the masses of humanity. Enrollment opens October 1st and closes on New Year's Day. To enroll, visit howtobecomethetruemedia.com. Answer the call and start doing the great work today.